Common Core Content Standard 2.md.c.7. Tell and write time from analog and digital clocks to the nearest 5 minutes using AM and PM. For this standard, students need to know how to tell time on an analog and a digital clock and how to write it down. Digital clocks are fairly easy for students. If they understand how to write the time down, then they understand how to look at a digital clock. So for most of the standard, we'll be focusing on the analog clock. It's a good idea to have already taught the numbers and operations base 10 standard A.2 prior to students learning how to read an analog clock. That standard has students learning how to skip count by fives, tens, and hundreds. Skip counting by fives is very important for this standard. Here we have an analog clock. It is good practice to have students learn to skip count around the clock. So at the 12, students will write a 0 above it. Next to the 1, they'll write a 5, a 10, a 15, a 20 next to the 4, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, and then of course they're back to 0. Once students have mastered skip counting around an analog clock, it becomes easier to tell the minutes on an analog clock in 5-minute increments. We can now focus on the hour hand. If the hour is between two numbers, in this case the hour is between a 7 and the 8, then the hour is the hour before. It's the lower number. So if the hour hand is between a 7 and an 8, you're going to go with 7. If the hour hand is between a 3 and a 4, it's going to be 3. The only exception to this rule is when the hour hand is between the 12 and the 1. If the hour hand is between the 12 and the 1, it is 12 something. Here's a typical problem that I've seen on many tests. I've already written the minutes in around the clock by skip counting. The student has to skip count until they get to 40. They should end up at the 8. They will then draw in the long minute hand arrow at the 8. Recognize that the minute hand that we drew in is more than halfway around our clock. That means that the arrow that we draw in to show the hour is going to be just more than halfway between the 6 and 7. In the resources area of this course, you will find a worksheet that has been created to help students skip count around clocks. AM and PM confuses many students. Students need to understand that AM is morning and PM is night. 12 o'clock confuses many students. 12 a.m. is actually midnight. So students think the term night is in midnight. So shouldn't that be 12 p.m.? They need to understand that 12 a.m. actually represents 0 hour for the day. It's the first hour in the morning. So it's morning time. The shift from night to morning happens at 12 a.m. The same goes with 12 p.m. 12 p.m. is noon. It's lunchtime. That's where the shift from morning till night happens on our clock. Here are some practice problems. Tell whether it's AM or PM for each problem.